Your friend Mark here at Salt City Hoops got a great episode here queued up for you. Talk about my frustration with some of the bizarre 10-day signings by the Utah Jazz and how it led to a little bit more brazen tanking than usual that made for some pretty loathsome watches over the past couple weeks. But we dive into who those players were, why I'm frustrated with those decisions, why they don't actually matter, and then get into the meat of March for all of our wonderful prospects, especially some great months for Ace Bailey, and to a lesser extent, Kyle Filipowski and Cody Williams, and maybe a little Bryce Sense about talking there as well. So hope you enjoy it. I also had a nightmare of a time messing up with my audio and microphone. So we strive for perfection here at Salt City Hoops. So hopefully you still enjoy it, as it's a great discussion. Hope to hear from you in the comments wherever you are. And after the intro, you might need to tweak your volume or anything like that. It's going to sound a little different from the microphone, but we'll be back next week with a new and improved audio system. Anyways, enjoy the discussion. I'm Mark for Salt City Hoops. Talk to you soon. Welcome in, friends, back to Salt City Hoops. Hope you're all well. My name is Mark Russell Pereira, back again to talk to you about all things about the Utah Jazz lately in the NBA at large. Got some fun topics to talk about. As I prefaced a couple weeks ago during our March Madness preview, I had spring break last week with the boys, and I brought a microphone and a computer to maybe spin up a podcast for you last week. And I watched the games at night as I was away. As many of you know, I live in Denver, but I was in Moab for part of it. It was my first time ever in Moab, and I got to watch my first ever Jazz games on local television. I watched a very fun Nuggets game and the Suns blowout on the Friday, Saturday back-to-back. And so I thought I could pull it off, and as I tried to get a recording out after the very, very fun Nuggets game, my young boys were not sleeping super well, and I had to cancel those efforts, and then I didn't really have an opportunity for the rest of the weekend. We get into the week, get back into work. So tried to do something last week, but spring break, it's the end of the season. But yeah, we're at the end of the season. Look at that. And I know it's the Utah Jazz is not a team that folks are thirsting for the updates, but I still watch all this stuff, and I like to talk to you guys and hear what you're thinking, because there's a huge number of sickos like me out there that I know you guys are listening, you guys are watching, and you have your thoughts on this team. We got 5 games left, and I got to be honest, guys, there's been some moments of fun that we've had along the way. I think I'm recording this on April 1st. Happy Fool's Day. Happy April Fool's Day. And this home game against the Nuggets and the other home game the other close game was on the road in Denver, excuse me. Those were some fun games. And the Jazz have still continued to be weirdly competitive in some of these outings. However, I'm really, really deflated with just the lineups that get put out there on a nightly basis. You still have Bryce Sensabaugh playing. You still have Kyle Filipowski playing. We've talked about Ace Bailey exploding over the past in a previous show. He's even continued that. Please go on saltcityhoops.com and read Dan Clayton's film breakdown, statistical breakdown of everything Ace Bailey's doing. Let me just put it to you this way. He's at 20 points per game in March, block a game, 41% from 3-point land. That's not from the field, but 3-point land. He's over 40% in March, which is an entire month of games. So that's not just for 2 weeks. That's an entire month of games. 45% from the field overall, which is remarkable considering that he's not doing a very good job getting to the rim. So he's not shooting a lot of layups and stuff, guys. These are all jump shots that he's hit as a rookie, 19-year-old rookie, shooting 45% on a high diet of jump shots, and a lot of them contested too. So talked about there's still some stuff worth watching. However, Cody Williams has had some nice improvements lately. We're going to talk about all these guys. But I want, before we get into the fun stuff, just something that's niggling at me, and I just wanted to kind of get my thoughts out there. The Jazz have cycled through a bunch of 10 days that have just like really disappointed me. You get to this end of the season, if all of our players aren't going to play, and Isaiah Collier is now going to be out for the year too with um, a soft tissue injury. He was having a nice little end of the year himself, not exactly a winning basketball player, but he was having some winning moments, including his 20 assist game, right? So the Jazz have to fill out the roster with random dudes, right? And the most cost effective way you're going to do that is with your 10-day contracts. Now, with expanded two-way roster opportunities, every team gets a third two-way this year, or they now have, if you're not familiar, you get your three two-way guys who cycle between the G League and the Pro Club. They each get 50 games with that they can participate on the active roster with the NBA team, and their salaries are lower, right? And there's exceptions to the salary cap for these two-way players. But because the teams all now have a third two-way player instead of a second two-way player, that lowers the fringy prospect player pool by 30 players, right? Because all those fringy prospects are on two-way deals that are worth more than random 10-day contracts. And so the most cost-effective way to fill out your roster to just kind of play out the string is with a few 10 days. And you can sign the same player to a subsequent 10-day contract, but you can't give him a third one unless you want to put him on your main roster. And so we knew going into the situation, the Jazz were going to cycle through some 10 days. And I don't scout the G League. I don't scout international waters for random dudes, right? I have no idea what's happening. I mean, long-time deep cut listeners of Salt City Hoops will know I love myself some FIBA basketball. I love FIBA and the Olympics and even like things like the Asia Cup and things like that to learn about where's basketball happening in places I'm not familiar with. But during the NBA season, I'm not exactly like scouring G League statistics or anything. And we should all know, before I get into denigrating anybody, we should all know that G League statistics mean nothing. Well, I shouldn't say nothing. There's a lot you can take away from G League statistics without looking at the tape. The corollary I like to use is like Mac McClung is now he's on a two-way with the Chicago Bulls, but he keeps bouncing around from G League team to G League team, putting up ridiculous scoring and assist numbers. And his three-point stroke looks good, and he looks like a superstar in the G League. Yet can't get and he played for the Pacers on their when the Pacers went through a slew of injuries this year. He played for them and didn't look good, right? So the quote-unquote best players in the G League, if you're just going based on scoring numbers and counting stats, that's rarely going to be the case. Rarely going to be the case. And when you're trying to unearth G League talent, you're looking for players who can do a couple legitimate NBA skills and don't hurt you in all the ways that they don't have NBA skills. So like they bring something that can really do something for a lineup for you and don't kill you other places. You're not looking for your next starter. You're looking for a guy who can kind of contribute, and you're not immediately charting his 8-year path in the NBA. You're saying, hey, can you kind of contribute to us in practices? Can you contribute to us on the floor in a way? Can we plug you in certain places where, hey, we know what you can do and you're going to do the shooting thing well, or you're going to defend well, or you have crazy size, or you have great speed and you can work on this. Like they're scouting for a specific element. So even if the Jazz aren't going to sign a 30-point per game Mac McClung guy to fill out the end of the season, although that would be kind of exciting, like just for random reasons. Maybe he'd put up some numbers for the main club and it would be fun, but it would not be productive. And when you are trying to build a championship roster, and maybe I get too over my skis on this, but I insist that when you're trying to build a championship roster, like finding all these little fringy, every single fringe decision goes under a microscope. So I'm bringing all this lead in to say when the Jazz decided to sign Anderson, Garcia, and Bez and Bang to 10-day contracts, and Bez and Bang got a second 10-day, he's still with the club. Anderson, Garcia did not get a second 10-day. I was pretty disappointed. And they were also miserable to watch on the court. They were not good. They're very, very bad basketball players getting a ton of opportunity. Both players had got 48-minute opportunities with the Jazz, which is just comically gross behavior by the team. I think there were enough, as I mentioned, Bryce Sensabaugh, Kyle Filipowski, a lot of these, and all the two-way guys, Oscar Tshiebwe, Elijah Harkless, Blake Hinson, I'm going to talk about him shortly. He only has 3 games left of eligibility with the big club. I'll talk about him shortly. He's looked great, but Tshiebwe and Harkless have a lot of eligibility left. There were enough actual NBA players that watching these total non-NBA talents suck up 48 minutes it makes for kind of a joke watch for a lot of it. And both of them, their thing is hustle, energy, defense. And yes, we did have a few moments of Anderson Garcia putting up huge rebounding numbers and had a few electric hustle plays. But he was bad at NBA basketball. He was bad. Atrocious. Respect to a young guy who's getting out there and getting better. It's not his fault. He was overmatched in a lot of this stuff. But he averaged 6 points a game in college. Again, you don't have to slam the door shut on a guy scoring 6 points a game in college. Peyton Watson barely scored in college. He looks like a great player for Denver now. But I'm just saying, this is not a guy who was kind of interestingly productive in college and is kind of finding his way. No, he averaged single digits in college, and he put up 12 points and 11 rebounds a game for Mexico City in the G League in a handful of games, and he didn't start many games. He played 25 minutes a game. And you're just kind of looking at being he can't shoot at all. Skinny guy, 6'7", skinny guy who rebounds way better than his height and his weight. But, okay, rebounding is nice, but what else can you do out there, right? We already have Oscar Tshiebwe, who can't do anything but rebound. And then Bez and Bang had a more illustrious college career, but not by much. Bez and Bang went to Yale, 4-year player. I think he was the Ivy League player of the year his last year. But this is not a 18, 19, 20 point per game Yale score. He scored 12 points a game. Couldn't shoot at Yale. Absolutely can't shoot in the G League. And we're saying, hey, here's a 10-day and here's a second 10-day contract. And he has a little bit, just a touch more on-ball juice than Garcia, right? He can dribble the basketball a little bit, he can move the ball around, but he's a complete non-shooter and looks pretty lost out there on both ends. And I think we would have given Garcia a second 10-day contract if Isaiah Collier didn't get hurt and we were left with 0 point guards. And so we signed Kennedy Chandler to a 10-day contract. He was 5'10", 5'11". He might have even been a first-round pick a few years ago, but he was signed by the I'm going to look this up real quick. He might have been a late first-round pick out of University of Tennessee. Had a good, very top recruit. He was drafted as the 38th pick by Memphis, but couldn't last the year. He got cut before the end of his first year as a second-round pick, which that rarely happens. But the Jazz needed a point guard, and I haven't been impressed with Kennedy Chandler, but he fills an actual role. He looks like a fifth NBA point guard, which is exactly what he's doing out there. And 23 years old, really fast, really small. Shooting is kind of, we'd like you to shoot from three a little bit better than you do. Kind of a weird shooting motion because he's kind of a smaller guy, so it kind of shoots from the hip a little bit. Or shoots in front of his body, just like kind of like more of a push on instead of a natural jump shot motion. But he fills a role that I understood what he was doing. Whereas Bez and Bang and Anderson Garcia, they're just random energy dudes. And it's not that they were just filling out minutes at the end of the roster. The Utah Jazz went immediately unethical tank mode with these guys. They said, great, new 10-day players, we're going to play the worst lineups you've ever seen in your life. They end up losing by 23 at home to the Wizards for these efforts, right? And the Wizards are playing a bunch of bullshit, too. I think they played BT Black for 40 minutes. I think he's actually on the 2 minutes. But the Jazz played, Baz and Bang 44 minutes. He was like great minus 28. What's funny, I got to talk about Blake Henson in a minute right now, but the Jazz lose by 23, and Blake Henson was at plus 15 in 11 minutes. So that was a really fun game for him. And I'm struggling to land the plane here, but I guess what I'm getting at is the Jazz are going to need to find surplus value in surprising places to make this roster construction work, but the salaries owed to Jaren Jackson and Lauri Markkanen and soon to be Walker Kessler and Keontae George. Ace Bailey's going to command star salary down the line. You got to find your fringy players other places. We signed Royce O'Neal out of nowhere. He was playing in random summer league opportunities, but he was signed up for a Lithuanian league when we signed him from a tryout situation, right? So you can unearth guys in random places. It typically happens more often in the summer when you're comparing your summer league and training camp rosters. Joe Ingles, great, so sign him as a waiver acquisition. Go all the way back to Wes Matthews as a training camp body who made the roster. And for CJ Miles got hurt. Speaking of which, great to hear CJ Miles is a third broadcaster working with Thurl. I really don't like three-person booths except for like the NBA Finals. I don't mind having like that heightened attention. But if CJ Miles is working his way into like maybe doing 20 games as a broadcaster with Bowler to give Thurl a break here and there, he was pleasant to listen to. I like listening to him. One of my favorite random Jazzmen. I love CJ Miles. We remember guys on every podcast. We just remembered CJ Miles. We just remember Wes Matthews, who was like playing in the league last year. He's had a hell of a career. Anyways, I'm never going to completely say at the outset that these are bad signings. What are you doing? But after about 2 or 3 games of watching each player, I was like, this is so stupid. And that they were playing 40-plus minutes each consistently over the span of their 10-day contracts. It really made me... I'm getting overly frustrated and overly mad about something that ultimately super does not matter, my friends. I have an outlet that I just needed to say something negative about it because I've been very happy and pleasant. This has been such a pleasant Jazz season, guys. What amazing surprises and joy we've had. And so I'm not going to sit around here like poking at every little negative, but man, it was miserable to watch those guys. I hated those signings from the beginning. I didn't see any surprising value that we were going to get out of those guys. And instead, while I'm trying to watch fun Ace Bailey or Cody Williams or Kyle Filipowski or Bryce Sensabaugh development paths, I'm sitting here and watching Anderson Garcia look out of place. It felt wasting of my time for the sole intention of losing the games. There are more artful ways to lose these games. And I felt like just playing these guys 40-plus minutes was a way of just being like, look, hey, Will Hardy, we get to decide, we in management get to decide what clubs in the bag you get to use for this golf tournament. And we have replaced your 7-iron with a stick. And you have to use that stick every time you're on the fairway. Here's your driver is now it has a wobbly shaft. Have fun up there. And so he says, okay, I have to do that. I've always said like Hardy and management are on the same page. Everyone knows the assignment. I think next year, everyone, for all the different reasons, are excited that this experiment is just over. Like, we're done. Like, everyone, players, management, coaches, they all have their reasons. But this has been the most outrageous tank ask of Will Hardy. And it really bothered me. And Bang will have a couple more games, I think, before his 10-day expires. Just did not enjoy the experience there. Kennedy Chandler has also been bad, but at least he's like a point guard doing point guard things that help set up the rest of the offense, right? Like Elijah Harkless was completely miscast as a point guard after Collier went down. So thankful that the Anderson Garcia experience is over. Thankful that the best Bang experience is about to be over. Didn't see the point in those signings. Didn't see any of Royce O'Neal potential at the time we signed those guys. Like Royce O'Neal, you can look back at this Baylor tape and some of what he was doing and be like, I can see like a real NBA rugged forward here. With Garcia, it was just like, energy dude who can't do anything else, and Bang, it was the same thing. They look like professional players. Like they look like they can carve out professional basketball career somewhere. One of my favorite, everyone knows I went to the University of Buffalo. One of my favorite players ever during my tenure was Mitchell Watt. He played a couple G League or a couple summer league seasons here in the States, and he's carved out a long career in the Italian leagues and Japanese leagues. And I still get to watch his highlights, right? And he's making a living and gets to travel the world and all that kind of thing. And he seems like he's living a good life. So I wish that for Garcia and Bang. And Kennedy Chandler, he's a 38th overall pick. I think there's actually something to there if he can be an efficient offensive player. Because at 5'10", he's just never going to be. He's going to be a problem defensively. So it's more like, hey, it's a random game in February. We need a third point guard to keep the train on the rails for 12 minutes a game. Can Chandler do that? Maybe. Okay. Let's get positive. Blake Hinson. So I kept sitting there thinking to myself, why aren't we seeing more of Blake Hinson? Because every time he's out there, I do like, okay, he's doing some cool things out there. He's got great size. He's just a lethal shooter. Oh my goodness. It's not the fastest stroke in the world. And so, because it's not like a very fast stroke, he's not like running around like Steph Curry or Jimmer Fredette out there where he's just jacking up shots on a quick thing. But he gets to his spots with pace, and he has a medium to medium slow release that goes in the basket. Like he's a great shooter, and he's done it against contested defensive opportunities as well. So the reason I was confused is because I had in my head 2A players get 50 games to play with the big club. I didn't realize until I was looking into wondering why isn't Blake Hinson playing this week? That 50 game number is prorated based on if you were signed in the middle of the season. And Blake Hinson was signed to his 2-way contract in the middle of this season. So he actually, based on his late signing date, he's only eligible to play 18 games with Big Club, with Jazz. And he's already been active for 15 of them. So he only has 3 games left of eligibility. Now the Jazz have 5 games left. So I'm sure we'll see Blake Hinson in his 3 games. I want him back. His profile, what's his age right now? I want him back on a two-way. Like clock him in at 230, 6'8", 230. Ooh, love it. He just turned 26. Don't love that age. He looks like he played 5 college years. He's played in the G League for a few years. So he's already, next year's going to be his age 27 season. Well, you give a guy like that a two-way in exchange for other players. I just think he's good enough that I want to keep him around. Let's invite him to Jazz Summer League on the Jazz roster. I think the Jazz will actually be light on NBA players on their Summer League roster next year because after trading away Hendricks and Clayton, I don't think Hendricks would have played either, but I think you're looking at having Cody Williams as a third-year player, maybe playing Summer League. You get whatever rookie we draft, and Ace Bailey's not playing in Summer League. Ace Bailey is not playing in Summer League. So having a guy like Blake Hinson, who's been around for a little bit, would be kind of useful. Age 27 season, you would love to sign your guys a little bit younger. However, shooters tend to develop a little bit later, typically, than other player archetypes. And his shooting has really, really, really come around. And I want to see if there's something here because he's also got a little bit of ball skills and defense. Like there's a whole player here that you can say, hey, we're going to develop you for a year, develop you over the summer, and we're going to find surplus value out of you where we sign you to a 4-year minimum contract, and turns out you're cracking the rotation every so often due to injuries, and you're 11th, 12th, 13th man. There's something, who knows? A lot of talk about Blake Hinson. On these last 5 games of the season, he's going to be active for 3 of them. Pay attention to him, see if you agree or disagree. And whatever you do, and at any point I ever make, agree, disagree, whatever. I want to hear from you. It's my favorite part of doing this, is hearing your comments. What do you think? About what I say? I even if it's not responsive, you just have your own Utah Jazz thoughts that you want to spout out, please reach out to me. I can personally be found on Blue Sky here in the YouTube comments as well. Easy to find, and Count is still on Twitter, and we'll respond to you there as well. Love hearing from you guys. I mentioned Ace Bailey. I forgot to give a few more Blake Hinson stats, but just go look at his numbers. They're great. He's shooting great from 3. He's a good player. Ace Bailey's a star, guys. We're bringing back full circle back to Utah Jazz Summer League, where Ace Bailey didn't necessarily have like the greatest shooting performances from time to time. He only played a very small handful of games, of course. But the way he moved on the court and what he was doing out there was very obviously like the talent is just dripping on the floor with him. And not in like an Anthony Randolph way. Remember, that's a great remember a guy, Anthony Randolph. Where it's like, okay, you see his physical specimen and you can see an archetype of what an NBA player looks like with his body. No, this is a guy with like the ball skills and what he was doing with his shooting motion, how he was getting into his shot, how he was dribbling. Like, yes, he's not the best ball handler in the world, but he had a good handle of the basketball. I get so mad at how Isaiah Collier and Bryce Sensabaugh dribble the ball off their feet constantly. It drives me nuts, guys. Ace Bailey has more stiltiness to when he has the basketball. He's not a mover and a shaker. And we'll see. He'll this year 1. But I have so much confidence when he has the ball that he's not going to do something stupid with it. Because he has those ball skills. I loved watching him in Summer League. And guys, we're seeing over the past month, if you're not paying attention to Jazz basketball, if you like to just tune into these podcasts and just look in, you got to watch Ace Bailey the rest of the way. And of course, I'm going to say that and he's going to put up 5 pointers. But he's got it. He's absolutely got it. He's getting to all the spots on the floor from 13 feet out. The 3-point shot, he's not just being set up for random threes and they're going in. He's taking off the dribble threes. He's been the primary ball handler and where he's finding his own shot. He's coming off of every single design play set that we've ever done for a guy like John Collins or Lowry Markkinen. Like they're all going to ace right now, and he's executing them with 100% accuracy. And he's reading the game really well. He's doing his read and react. He's got such natural basketball IQ. His IQ is off the charts. He's got like this natural read and react game without the ball, with the ball. Once you put Ace Bailey with other players who are really good at basketball, it's going to elevate Ace into the stratosphere. And so I know that the broader NBA media is not watching the Jazz. They shouldn't. I don't exactly blame them for this. But Ace Bailey is so much more than the numbers on the page right now. Yeah, the points per game are nice. The percentages are nice. The blocks, oh my God. He still gets into various foul trouble once in a while. He's a 19-year-old rookie trying to play defense. Defense doesn't look great from time to time. But he has figured out, like, I can block a lot of shots. And he's blocking a lot of shots when he gets into like the, oh shit, I screwed up territory. So it's funny, a lot of his blocks are coming in the, I failed to guard my man, but I will still be able to shove his shot into the backboard. And it's looked great. And once you actually put him in actual help defense responsibilities or whatever, I mean, the all defense potential's there. Like, holy shit. It's all there. It's a star. He's a star. What's very funny is that all of Knipple, Flag, Dylan Harper, VJ Edgecombe, all 5 of these guys are making all-star games. What an amazing draft. And we're going to be looking at this draft for all time. All of them are making all-star games in their careers. In fact, Edgecombe is the one who looks like maybe he will, maybe he won't. Like he looks most like, to me, like making the most out of his opportunity with like the raw athletic and ball handling skills that he has. But he's really got to elevate the other parts of his game where you feel like, okay, there is an all-star. I love Edgecombe. I think he's going to be a star as well. It's just it feels a little bit more rough and ready with him. Whereas with like Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, you see real NBA. They're not brute forcing what they're doing on the court. It has felt from the beginning like Edgecombe is brute forcing a lot of his output. And his athleticism and his IQ are doing a lot of, like, it's amazing. He's really, really great. It feels like what Harper and Bailey and Knipple and Flag are doing a little bit more effortless. Which it's amazing that we have effortless rookies. It should be hard, right? So it's what I'm trying to emphasize with Edgecombe is like, in comparison to those 4 guys, it looks a little bit more forced. But if those 4 guys didn't exist, he would be Rookie of the Year, and it would be like celebrated and very well earned. I love Edgecombe. So all 5 of those guys look amazing. And what I'm going to be upset about, though, is if Ace Bailey doesn't make first team All-Rookie. Because the other 4 guys had hotter starts of the year based on opportunity and exposure. You got 3 of those guys playing on very good playoff teams. Like, say what you will about the Hornets and the Sixers. Like, they're good teams. Good teams. They're not Portland Trailblazers out there. They're good teams. The Mavericks have an outline of a really good team that they don't have Irving. They didn't have Davis for half the year, right? They'll never have Davis again. So all 4 of those guys have the exposure and the opportunity that they're going to make first team All-Rookie. And there's been a lot of like seal hand clapping about people like Cedric Howard, who's been very, very good. Colin Murray-Boyles, who's been pretty nice. Ace Bailey is blowing them out of the water right now. absolute, like, by several tiers. And I look forward to watching Cedric Howard the next 14 years. He looks like a very, very, very good basketball player. But what Ace Bailey's been doing over the past, not just the month of March, it's been for several months now. He looks incredible, and I hope that voters will say, you know what, we don't want to look back at first team all rookie and have Ace Bailey on the second team. There's going to be a lot of ballots that leave him off entirely, which is, I'm not going to get into that. Watch him. He looks great. I love it. And I'm back to, I've never been low on him. I've never, like, my thoughts have never wavered, but now I am thinking stratosphere with him. Needs to get to the rim. I'm not going to start complaining about, I'm going to criticize maybe a little bit, but I'm not going to be worried, complain, have consternation over Ace Bailey's inability to get to the rim until next year. Right now, he's not comfortable doing it. We've seen Will Hardy and the coaching staff bring him along very, very slowly. That's another reason he might get first team all rookie taken away from him, is because the team has been very intentional about bringing Ace Bailey along responsibly, where they knew what the goal of the season was, and proper development isn't, here you go, buddy. Here are all the shots and the ball's in your hands all the time. And this is how we'll lose 70 games. They want to add a specific skill for Ace as the season goes on. You keep building on these skills slowly so that by the end of it, it's kind of like him playing a RPG video game or a video game of that ilk, right? Where you start out the game and your character is so weak and you wonder, like, how am I ever going to slay the dragon at the end of it? And you start building skills little by little by little by little. And they all compound on each other. And they have relationships to each other. Then they have force multipliers with other teammates on your party or something like that. And all of a sudden you're at the end of it and you're like, oh my God, this is the best character in the world. That's what Ace Bailey is. So I don't think that they've worked at all on getting to the rim. And at all, like, I'm being super exaggerative here. I'm sure they've worked on everything. But the focus for Ace on getting to the rim and finishing around the rim can't really be a focus until he has at least one and ideally two full off seasons of physical work on his body and how to draw contact. Even a guy like Kevin Durant just had way more skill than Ace had coming into the NBA. And so Kevin Durant, even despite his thin frame, kind of knew how to draw contact a little bit. And eventually, even Kevin Durant, as skinny as he was, he's slowly but surely, when he got into his 30s, he started looking like a real built basketball player. Still skinny as hell, right? Still kind of scrawny by, NBA forward standards. But he learned really how to draw contact consistently going to the rim. And I think that will take Ace Bailey several years. We're not going to start poking at what he could do better around that area until I give him an offseason. See what he grows into. And even next year, with all the bodies and the shots that are going to be available in the offense, I still think he's going to be largely a perimeter player, which will be just fine. Like, the numbers say he shoots 85% at the rim, which is a disgustingly high number. It's because they're all like fast break dunks and that sort of thing. So I'm hoping that they give him more of the cutting responsibilities that they gave to Lauri Markkanen this year, where Ace Bailey's going to the basket more. Ace Bailey prefers to rise up and shoot a wide open 12-footer, which is the equivalent of a Lauri Markkanen bulldozing his way to the rim, right? Like, that's just what Ace Bailey does, right? Last two guys I want to talk about: Cody Williams, Kyle Filipowski. Then we'll wrap it up before we sign off. For the last 5 games left. I'm dragging through to the end of the year. I love watching the Jazz on a night-to-night basis. just watching players that don't belong in the court, can make it for a hard watch. Quick side note on Oscar Tshiebwe. Beloved locker room presence. He has one skill, and it's rebounding. He's a big man who can't defend the rim. He has the worst hands in the NBA. I feel bad criticizing the guy because I think he and Epe Udo might be the most beloved guys that the Jazz locker room have had. We're remembering more guys. Remember Epe Udo? Hey, there's a guy to remember. Just guys that everyone loves having around. Tshiebwe's got his tiny cowboy hat that's always fun. But he's not even rebounding the ball well this year, and you just kind of wonder, like, what do you do here? So when I think about ways that the Jazz are wasting my time these days, Oscar Tshiebwe, as much as I love the guy, he's a target of this, of me for this. Not just Garcia and Mbang, but also when I see Oscar Tshiebwe minutes, it just deflates my energy level, man. He's a challenging practice body. Like, they have to learn how to rebound around him and everything. I think the Jazz could have done better with a two. We had him on a two-way last year. I just don't see the reason to bring him back. I think there were better, more intriguing options. Who are they? I don't know. I'm not the scout here, but like I feel like that was we let Micah Potter go, and Micah Potter had a nice, productive season for Indiana. I feel like he would have been more useful on a two-way than Tshiebwe. Potter started as two-way in San Antonio this year. Ended up going to Indiana because of all their injuries. Just ended up playing minutes and looking really productive. Okay, so Cody Williams. Look, I said before the season, I locked the book closed on him and I threw away the key. And so if I do that, that is a Salt City Hoops Mark Pereira thing. All right, if I can either close the book or I close the book and I lock it like a diary. Like a preteen girl's diary with a lock, and I throw the key away. So with Keontae George, I closed the book on it, but I notably said I'm not throwing away the key. I reserve the right to unlock this and open it back up. And so I didn't completely screw up with it. But with Cody Williams, I threw away the key, and I cannot take that back. So I now have to take up the mantle of Cody Williams skeptic. But I don't think it's entirely unfounded, my friend. So, month of March. Counting stats look nice. 16 points a game, 50% from the field. Doesn't shoot threes, and when he does shoot threes, they only go in 24% of the time. 4 rebounds, 4 assists. Half a block, steal, couple turnovers. He had 9 assists today against the Nuggets, like 38 minutes. And he's put up a number of 7 assists, 5 assists. This is a career-high assist for him, 9 assists. And he's had a number of games where he puts up a number of assists. And he will have games like the Bucks game, not the Bucks game that we won, the Bucks game that we lost on March 7th, puts up 11 rebounds in 37 minutes. And then in the narrow loss to the Sixers, again, a lot of weird narrow losses for the Jazz with this crappy lineup. Testament to everyone involved, including the two-way guys or the 10-day guys I was just shitting on earlier. But like, everyone is playing really hard. And as people have noted to me, maybe it's that the effort level and intensity of these two-way guys is elevating the intensity for the Filipowski, Sensabaugh, et cetera, of the roster, where it could be very, very easy for those guys to be like, look, I'm checked out. We'll see what happens next year. It's hard to fight for minutes right now and really give a shit when I know that everyone's kind of looking to next year. So maybe you bring in a couple guys who are fighting for any sort of professional salary and just having them go balls to the wall all the time, and it elevates the intensity level. So perhaps there is some more credit to be given there than I expect. However, the reason I'm going back to an old topic, but the reason that doesn't totally pass muster with me is because I think you can find that scrappy, willing to do anything quality in a number of guys with a lot more skill than those two. But they brought the energy, and the guys, I think, elevated their energy with it. So going back to Cody Williams, he has an 11 rebound game, but he's liable to have 0 rebound games. 0 rebounds in 30 minutes against the Nuggets in the close loss in Denver last week, the fun one. 0 rebounds against the Sixers. 2 rebounds against Phoenix. 2 rebounds in 38 minutes against the Knicks, right? Well, the guy is 6'7", 6'6", 6'7". ESPN has him at 6'8". I don't quite believe that. Sometimes he'll get a couple blocks. Sometimes he'll get a number of steals. Other nights he looks completely invisible. And this could all be part of the growth trajectory for Cody Williams, but I'm just not seeing a player where you're putting him in a lineup and saying, this is what Cody Williams is going to do. It's when Cody Williams ends up on the floor in a good situation, 4 good players around him, it's going to be because, hey, we need a guy who's 6'6" to 6'7" size to just kind of be out there doing some random defensive things. He's a very, very, very smart cutter, right? Like just a guy who can elevate the IQ of his team a little bit and not kill you. And Cody Williams is basically, he's barely reached. Well, he doesn't totally kill you. This is true for most players in the NBA, but like if you add a real 3-point shot to him, now we have a player who's like, okay, now he's kind of useful. Right now, he just doesn't kill you. And he's out there to just do random things. He will be out there and be wildly productive, or he'll be out there and be wildly unproductive. The average of 15 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, he's never, ever going to hit those numbers exactly. Like, those are his averages over the month, right? 15 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He had 1 game with 4 assists and 1 game with 4 rebounds in this period. And he's doing anything from 0 rebounds to 11 rebounds. He's doing everything from 0 assists to 9 assists. It's all over the map. So I'm left here. We're going to do player grades and stuff at the end of the season. But right now, I'm looking at this productive Cody Williams stretch and being like, I don't know, man. Like, the team is trying to lose and filling out the roster with bullshit players. And someone's got to do stuff out there. And you're the one doing the random stuff. So I just haven't been as impressed. He still has a number of layups that he can't finish. But this is his second year. And before the season and upwards, almost until like February, I was saying, I'm not picking up his $7.5 million 4th-year option, which is not for next year, but the year after. You have to make that commitment in the fall. And now I'm thinking with a good, productive offseason, maybe even a summer league appearance or 2, and a productive training camp, he's worth keeping the 4th-year option on to see where this is going as maybe a useful 10th, 11th, 12th guy in the team. We'll see. Lastly, with Kyle Filipowski, I think the only thing I want to say about Kyle really is he's had a couple fabulous games against the Nuggets. What's funny is in these Nuggets games, they're putting Elijah Harkless and John Konchar as the primary Nikola Jokic defenders, and they got blown out by the Nuggets in one game, but they had tonight's game and the game at Denver a while ago, they were wildly competitive and interesting because the Jazz were throwing random defensive David strategies at Denver and really forcing them into uncomfortable situations. And all credit, it goes to coaching deployment, but also Elijah Harkless, John Konchar, and any other little guy that was asked to guard Nikola Jokic during this period. Because it was clear to me that the big guy didn't really want to work too hard. So, yeah, they threw it in Elijah Harkless on him, if this was the playoffs, you just say, okay, man, I'm going to throw you the ball and let him go to work in the post. I don't think Nikola Jokic wants to do that, especially against a bad team where he's like, let me just get everyone else involved and get the win the easy way. However, if you blow out the Jazz in 24 minutes, you don't have to play in the second half. So Nuggets could have done things a little differently, but they also played like shit. But Filipowski looked amazing offensively in part because Nikola Jokic did not care defensively. And he wasn't matched up on Kyle Filipowski on the other end either. They were trying to keep Nikola Jokic out of as many Utah offensive actions as possible. But Filipowski was feasting. So when I think about Kyle Filipowski in the lens of where do you fit on this roster going forward with your offensive gifts and defensive problems, and you compare him to Bryce Sensabaugh and Isaiah Collier, I think of those three as a triumvirate. And the reason I like Collier the most, I think it's very reasonable for anyone to say that's my favorite guy of those three. And I've had a number of people say Kyle Filipowski is my favorite of those three. He can score, he can pass, he's a really productive player out there. I get it. You can say the same thing about Sensabaugh. I love the way he lights up the scoreboard sometimes. Great shooter. The reason Isaiah Collier is my favorite is because I see an actual role for him on a good team despite his flaws. Like, there's things he's going to be able to do in the playoff series in 8 to 10 minutes a game. And if he's playing in a certain matchup or situation where he's being totally exposed, it's fine to bench him. I think that's acceptable. He's doing NBA level things, though, that I'm like, I want to have him on there. And going back to the, who was I describing earlier that would kill you? I forget who I was mentioning earlier. I'm already forgetting what I said 10 minutes ago. But I feel like Isaiah Collier doesn't kill you out there. And he's doing enough productive things with what he can do that I see a role for him. I like where he's going with it. With Sensabaugh and Filipowski, I think they take enough off the table that they do end up killing you. A good contrast for this is, okay, so Isaiah Collier can't shoot. Non-shooters are a much, much, much bigger problem for your offense if they're not controlling the basketball. Because then you just have a random guy standing around the perimeter or doing whatever, like Cody Williams. And a guy like Cody Williams who can't shoot right now, he has to get his offense on smart cuts and doing things inside the paint that can really muck up your offense if that's what you're relying on. And if he can't shoot and he's standing out there while his defender is just sagging and bucking it all up for everyone else. However, if your bad shooter is your point guard or your ball handler, there are tricks of the trade that you can do to take advantage of a defender sagging off. You got the ball at the top of the arc, and your defender is sagging off 7, 8, 9 feet on you. I mean, we've seen Draymond Green do this for years and years and years in Golden State. There are ways that you can draw picks over, right? Or you can manipulate screens that are given for you in a way that penalizes the player who's standing 8 feet back. We've also seen a player like Collier, and he's not the only player who does this, when going up against a guy who's standing 8 feet back, man, you're giving Collier a runway to go as fast as possible. And he's going to come at you like a freight train, and you're standing still, and he's going to draw a foul. He's been very good at doing that this year. So there are ways that a non-shooter can have the basketball and be wildly productive. Not really concerned about that. Filipowski, obviously, my two big issues are just going to be defense and shooting. He's shooting 35% from three in March. Almost acceptable, guys. A player of Filipowski's skill, you can't just sit there and say, okay, he's got this great touch, he's a pretty good shooter, he's got good offensive talent. If he's going to survive as a productive rotation player on a playoff team, the shooting needs to be really high. I don't see an offensive fit on a good team for a player who can just kind of meander around the paint and do paint things, especially when those paint things can look really, really shitty sometimes. Filipowski is one of the worst players I've seen in some time at posting up smaller players. Yeah, I mean, we all have our issues with Rudy Gobert. Maybe I should qualify this with Kyle Filipowski is the worst offensive focused big man at posting up smaller players. His brain completely short circuits and he hucks up garbage. It's pretty weird to watch. He's a good face-up player and does some good things. And then when he tries to do face-up moves or post-up moves, either of the two against a smaller player, he just can't get around them or get off a clean shot. It's very bizarre. And then, of course, he just takes too much off defensively. This can all be caveated away if we see next year pairing him with Jaren Jackson Jr., pairing him with Walker Kessler, and seeing what that looks like. You can't pair him with Yusuf Nurkic because that's just wildfire, inflammatory defense. Well, as much as I like both players. So I just struggle to see more fits with Filipowski. We started the year with our starting lineup had Markkanen, Filipowski, and Kessler. That raised me out of my chair with injury. So I think the team does believe in his ability to fit in as a four in some good lineups. But the other four players have to be very carefully curated around him in a playoff situation for him to really matter. And I don't have that as much of a concern with Collier. But Sensible, I'm getting really close to closing the book, locking it up, and throwing away the team. The turnovers are the most asinine of any player on the team. He had 4 turnovers tonight. Dribble off your leg, dribble off your foot. He just loses the ball randomly sometimes. Really productive scorers. He's overrated from behind the arc. He is underrated from within the paint. Good, natural, gifted scorer, but he has to, all the stuff that he takes off the plate with respect to turnovers and defense and poor IQ, poor vision, has to be taken off. He has to be putting more on the table for that to be worth it. Perhaps Sensible gets there as more of a spot-up perimeter shooter or second-side attacker in a good lineup next year. So Filipowski and Sensible have routes being productive for this team next year when they're asked to do limited things in a 10 to 20-minute role. I'm skeptical. I'm more skeptical of that than I am when I can say Isaiah Collier, backup point guard, go play for 12 to 20 minutes as backup point guard, playing alongside, by having Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr., we have the luxury of big men who can shoot, Walker Kessler and Whisper, and that can make a player like Collier work. And those other two guys, though, I feel the best about Collier as far as I think the best talent here is still Filipowski, which is weird. I feel like Filipowski has the highest ceiling of this guy could really matter for a lot of NBA teams, but Collier has the more natural fit, I think, as to carving out a real NBA career. Sensible, I think I know where his ceiling is as a productive scorer for 12 years in the NBA. Also, secretly still an injury risk. Dude had really bad knee problems in college. We'll see where he's been pretty healthy. But I kind of know where his ceiling is, whereas Filipowski, I think, has more untapped. We'll see what he learns and how to do, especially as a shooter. And Collier, I'm not sure where he goes. I don't think he has the highest ceiling in the world. I just know where he fits on this team. That has me feeling happy. And the defense is obviously something that also needs to improve for him as well. Okay, so those are my thoughts in the last couple of weeks. I was on spring break last week, enjoyed the fine state of Utah out in Moab, got to see Delicate Arch for the first time, and all the other arches at Arches National Park. That was a lot of fun. Back next week to tell the story of the Jazz season mate. And then after the end of the season, we'll do all sorts of cool postseason stuff where we'll talk about the playoff teams, watch some playoff basketball together, do some end-of-season grades, end-of-season thoughts, prepare for the off-season, of course. But postseason basketball is always a lot of fun, which the Jazz will get to enjoy next year, knock on wood. A lot of people have been asking my thoughts on expansion. I'm not going to provide podcast thoughts on expansion until I know what's happening. I think people are getting over their skis of like, oh yeah, we're definitely adding 2 teams. There's just being a vote on this. I want to hear about the more formal expansion approaches than the mere bringing it up for a vote. We'll see. I want to be more prepared for a discussion with that. I think as soon as it was announced that they were going to vote on expansion, we ended up with 58 think pieces as to whether this is good for the NBA, if it's bad for the NBA. I think people are way too. I don't think it was more useful to talk or write about that until actually we the vote, and then you'll get my thoughts. For all of you asking, I hope you have a great night, great morning, great day, wherever you are. My name is Mark Pereira. Find me on Blue Sky. That's where I'm most often found these days to have conversations about the Jazz. Or here in the YouTube comments for Salt City Hoops. We'll catch you next week. Good night.